Hi, guys, and welcome to another episode. Today I'm sitting down with Domenic Thomas, who is the CEO of Worbli. Of course, we spent a lot of time talking, Domenic, through Worbli Talks and various other kind of avenues. But today I wanted to do something a little bit different, man. I just wanted to sit you down and we're going to talk about a lot of things. We're going to talk about some things Worbli. We're going to talk about some philosophy. We're going to talk about blockchain and just kind of have a general conversation. I want to welcome you and say thank you for sitting down with me today. And I'm just looking forward to having a chat, man.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. It's always great to talk to you.
I guess the best way to kick this off is let's talk about Worbli. I think there's a side of you that a lot of people don't really know. Obviously, everybody wants to make money, of course. Who doesn't want to be comfortable? That's it's a basic thing. But the thing that I really have liked about you and have kind of been inspired by in a lot of conversations is the fact that I think you're doing this for the right reasons. You want to build real financial applications and create access for people and just perhaps maybe actually change the world with blockchain. Am I kind of hitting the nail on the head? Where does that come from? And how did you kind of develop your thought process for the way that you want to use blockchain to create access and affect people's lives?
Yeah, like you said, look, people, we all want to do well. There's no doubt about it. But for me, it's about fairness. It's about creating a system that actually, that everyone involved in is sort of playing the same game, right? I'm in the U.S., but it kills me to see that the wealthier you are, the lower the interest rates on money that you borrow, and the more access you have to capital, right? And it's sort of like the more successful you are, the easier it gets. In a capitalist system, the way it's developed. And then, for people who are trying to just, get something started and, start a business from scratch and don't, come from wealthy backgrounds, they have almost no access to startup capital. And, if they were to borrow money for a business, they'd need to do it with a credit card with an incredibly high interest rate, if they could even get a credit card or a bank account. Or they'd be, probably having to do something like, loan shark style lending. What you hear in the early stage of a startup is, no one wants to put any money into your project until you have usually an MVP. And it's like, okay, well, how do I get there? I suppose if you're a programmer, maybe you can build a working MVP by yourself or with a couple of programming buddies. But for the more, we'll say, business-oriented entrepreneur who does have a skill set that's valuable, but maybe can't program and now has to hire or contract with some programmers to help start building an application, they need some funds. And they say, well, friends and family. Oh, well, that's great if you have rich friends and family, right? Or friends and family that have money that can put into your projects. But how many people in the world actually fit that description? 10%, maybe 20 at most. I doubt that. But, when we start talking globally, there's a lot of people who are left out, So, the internet revolution, so to speak, and the web innovations that lowered the barrier to entry for things like being able to launch a website and start publishing your writing, for example, right? Prior to the internet, if you didn't have a book deal or a gig with a newspaper or some kind of print or media company, you were a ghost, in the wilderness. No one was ever going to find your writing, So the internet created lots of opportunities like that, artists that can showcase themselves on YouTube, whatever. But if you want to get paid for any of that content, you need a bank account. Yeah. So that left about 2 billion people, give or take, wherever you read it, out of that entire economic opportunity, right? They were completely unable to benefit from anything that the internet did to create, lower barriers to entry. So, I feel like blockchain, this sort of third wave, Web 3.0 as it gets called, if we can create access to financial services, specifically the ability to transact financially around the world, move money, get paid, merchant processing, things like that. You know, there's a huge amount of people whose contributions are limited to these hyper-local situations. You know, all they can do is engage in commerce with people that they can basically meet in person. So I think it's exciting. That's something I haven't seen talked about much, you know, but what is the possible economic impact of 2 billion people suddenly being able to contribute in the global economy? You know, I imagine there's a lot of really smart, motivated, brilliant people right now that we have no shot of ever knowing about because of that. So that's exciting to me.
Yeah. Do you think in a sense that it's almost like it was designed that way because previously maybe that was the most efficient way of managing people? And as we roll into this new economy and Internet of Things, per se, things are starting to evolve to the point that access creates opportunity, creates capitalism. And I mean, I kind of feel like it was designed that way. I mean, that is the promise of blockchain. That's one of the promises of blockchain in an idealistic world, is to kind of create some equality in between these legacy systems that were kind of formed by the elites to give people a better shot at a better life, a better opportunity. And I think that a lot of people, like we talk about Worbli a lot, we're talking about STOs and accredited investors, but you and I have talked a lot on a personal scale. You've also mentioned that one of your major passions is to be able to start to bank the unbanked, because we spoke about this previously as well. There's not a lot of people in the world who might have access to a laptop or to like a desktop or a fancy new iMac. But what we're finding is in a lot of these countries that don't have the same financial opportunities, everybody has a cell phone or a smartphone. And I know that ultimately the plan with Worbli is to in some way kind of integrate that and create the possibility for like some kid in Tanzania who might not have access to a bank account to be able to connect with the world and interact with financial assets. And that's something that I don't think is talked about enough. I know it's a personal mission of yours. And that's one of the reasons why I have a lot of respect for you and why I'm so passionate about the project.
Yeah, I think that, you know, the mobile phone penetration is high and it's only growing. You know, their smartphones are becoming, you know, cheaper and cheaper and more accessible. And of course, it's far easier to roll out a mobile network in a developing country than it is to put up power lines and all of the, you know, phone lines and all the infrastructure that you know we've used in industrialized nations to sort of, you know, grow in the last 100 years or so. So there's a real kind of leapfrog opportunity for countries to get into, you know, telecommunications and mobile phone penetration. So that's a wonderful opportunity. And I agree to your first point. You know, blockchain started as a, you know, a project around sovereign money, right? It was to simply say that money is pretty much the value that people perceive it as. You know, I think as we all go down the blockchain rabbit hole, when you first get into Bitcoin and stuff, it's almost inevitable that you start reading some economic theory and monetary theory, you know, and you start to kind of understand that, you know, fiat money actually isn't backed by anything either. You know, sure, it represents the economic power of the United States government. You know, it's issued by the United States government. We all agree to accept it in exchange for goods and services, but there's no reason we can't decide we'll accept Bitcoin, right, for goods and services, and we have. Yeah. And so we've seen that, and the idea of a, you know, digitizing, you know, monetary trading units, basically, right, which is just what money is for individuals in countries where they maybe don't have their fiat currencies, you know, so to speak, not worth the paper it's printed on, or it's subject to even greater volatility than cryptocurrencies, right? It just, you know, so these folks could suddenly adopt Tether, for example, maybe. And as long as one person can sort of get in and access and start to bring Tether into the system, you know, they can all start trading it around and moving it around. And we see Worbli as a way in which eventually communities will do that. You know, communities will be able to come into Worbli and there'll be applications where they can basically launch their own coin, you know, for example, maybe a local cryptocurrency, and start using it as a tradable unit. or again, they'll be able to access these other instruments, buy Bitcoin, use Litecoin, whatever they want to use. I was thinking as you were talking about that, the sort of user journey for a mature blockchain, so your kid in Tanzania, who's an amazing artist, right? Everybody in the community loves all of her stuff, right? Everything that she creates is just amazing. And, it's just very well known. She's the best artist in that community, and so next thing she's signing up for Pixios, right? For example, and she's getting her art up there and she's building all of that. And then now she's got her Worbli account, right? Where she's able to accept the payments and, all the value and all the rewards for her, Pixios creations, right? And I mean, it could be that simple for someone to where what's her user journey right now? How does she get her art onto Etsy and accept payments, right? She can't.
No.
She can't do it,
Yeah, it's really interesting for me because I was recently looking at a lot of different. The world's changing. I don't care what anybody says. Bitcoin is not a fad. It's not going away.
No, of course.
There's a lot of companies that are producing point of sale applications for stores because they're starting to realize this is coming. And exactly as you said, we assign a value. It's you nailed it. We assign a value to the US dollar. Is there an intrinsic value of any sort? No, there really isn't at this current point. And that's one of the things that really opened my eyes when I hit blockchain and started really understanding some of the depth of some of these things. Revolution is coming. But we've spoken a little bit about internet kind of 3.0, the internet of value, the internet of things. But I've been doing a lot of I'm always working and I'm doing a lot of YouTube binge watching lately. And one of the things that I recently watched that absolutely scared the living crap out of me was successive amount of videos on automation and artificial intelligence. Now, those are both somewhat different, but also somewhat connected. And I think that our economy, we've got Uber buying, fleets and fleets of driverless cars. We've got, I think it was Tesla, who's building a massive amount of driverless vehicles, and never mind just driving. We're talking about the most basic jobs in the world are being automated at a rate to the point that in the next 10 years, our landscape and our job landscape and everything that we do is going to be almost unrecognizable. And for me, that was a big slap in the face. That was a big wake up because I think that our economy, not just in North America, but worldwide is in the middle of this massive transition. Things are about to get weird. You know what I mean? You are no longer going to go work your factory job in 5-10 years time and, whatever it might be. And it's not that any of those jobs are bad jobs or they're not appreciated or a driver of a truck or whatever it might be. It just means that job roles are about to change. You're either going to be an entrepreneur, you're going to be a robotics expert, you're going to be a programmer, or maybe a civil servant or something like that. How do you think that that's going to affect the new economy of things and some of the things that you're kind of doing right now?
Well, when you start to learn about AI and machine learning, what you come across quite quickly is that it's all reliant on data, right? Which is why there's a movement by a lot of the universities to start basically open sourcing their research data, which to date is one of their major assets that they charge for, right? If you've ever tried to do a really solid research paper, you have to get on PubMed, you have to actually buy the research articles. Research articles are not free for the most part. You can get the abstract, but if you really want to dig in and use it for we'll say a high-level academic paper, that information is not available. But there's another project, Florincoin, which is a kind of an OG blockchain project. It's a Bitcoin Litecoin fork esque. But anyway, what they did was they brought metadata, and as a result of that, one of the guys on that project who's at Caltech in California was able to strike a deal where Caltech's actually going to be putting all of their research data, kind of on the blockchain, so to speak, accessible via the Florincoin blockchain, and then IPFS and open index protocol, right, where the data will actually be. But the point is, it's going to be open sourcing. They're doing that, because the next generation of real academic assets for them are all of the machine learning algorithms and things that are being created in their labs now. And they need everyone else's data to train these things because the algorithm's only as good as the data set. And that's why everything's tracking you these days. That's how, Google's machine learning, is constantly consuming everything you do. Yeah. The problem is we're not getting paid for it. It's a huge commodity. It's extremely valuable. Companies pay millions and millions of dollars for data sets all the time, right? Facebook's entire business is built on your data. So you're the product. You don't realize that, but you're the product. You think you're the consumer of this free service. You're not. You're the product. You pay for it with your time and attention and your data. So Steemit was sort of one of the first forays via blockchain to say, well, wait a minute, let's flip the script and say that your data is valuable. You're going to publish it. And, the more people who consume it, the more you get paid. Right. And I, think that's absolutely the way that social media and social networking has to move. I don't know why anybody, besides the fact that Facebook has so much traction with so many users, but once another and we know people use multiple social media platforms, so we know that can happen. But once there's a Steemit that's anything like the Facebook user experience, and you actually get paid when that post gets 500 likes and blah blah blah, I think Facebook's either going to have to pivot really quickly or they're going to be obsoleted in almost no time. And so it's similar with Worbli in my approach is that it's not really a phase one right now. It's all about infrastructure for the time being. But phase two is things like data marketplaces. Phase two is things like allowing users the opportunity to start attaching applications that will, track all their data and store all their data so that they can then potentially monetize it, allow users to participate in, data platforms, in the future, right? We're working on a secure and verified user profile, right? For example, but there'll be a lot of valuable data in there, right? Your gender, potentially your address, like where you live, your age, possibly, and so. These things will be valuable to companies. And, my commitment with Worbli, as long as I'm running the foundation, which, won't be forever, but it is for now, is to make sure that we're looking into pathways for people to monetize their data. Because I think that's at least one of the ways in which individuals will be able to derive an income in a automated economy. Yeah, at least a largely automated economy.
100%, my friend. I have I've also been watching a lot of various YouTubes about kind of AI, and AI in a sense is a little bit scary in certain senses if we let it get away from us. And I think that a lot of the information that we put out publicly through a lot of these applications or people just don't realize how valuable their information is and how easily a person can be manipulated with that data. So it's important to be able to take it out of the hands of the big companies that are already stealing it from you. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, of course, ironically, and have some sort of control over that, because I think that we're moving into a time where robotics and AI are either going to be very incredible or very, very scary. So it's kind of funny. I appreciate the fact that you're taking some time to be able to separate that and give people an option and also be able to monetize their data, but be able to do it on their own terms, because I think that that's really going to be important in the future. So I guess I wanted to talk to you a little bit about a recent development, which I thought was kind of ironic. JP Morgan coin, right? I mean, after years of just beating the crap out of blockchain, all of a sudden,
of course,
right? And I mean, just
well, what's the saying go? Like first they ignore you, sort of, then they hate you, and then eventually they adopt it, right? It's that whole process.
Yeah, and it's I mean, it's not a complex system. It's just, I believe, and I've done a little bit of research on it. It's simply a way of transferring value in between companies.
Yeah, they want it. It's effectively like a settlement replacement, right? For something like Swift or.
Yeah, which makes perfect sense. Like, hello, it's good to see that you finally woke up. But the irony behind that sudden 360, hey, we're running a blockchain now, is absolutely crazy. And I think that's indicative of a lot of the other things that are starting to happen in the world, including a lot of the potentials with Worbli and kind of moving some of these existing financial instruments onto a blockchain, just to be able to take away, a lot of the fees involved with organizing them, and also just make them a little bit more faster, make them a little bit more transparent. I think that it was kind of funny to see that happen. But overall, would you think that JP Morgan coin is a good or a bad thing for the industry?
I think it's great. Look, it's validation that any of us who are out here putting energy and effort into developing, blockchain technology, trying to find various ways to deploy decentralized networks, things like that. Obviously, if JP Morgan has put their time, energy, and money behind it and is rolling out a blockchain-based project, that's great validation. I think it's also going to drive, government, agencies to create clear policies around blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies. And so, yeah, it's a solid vote. People often can be kind of a bit reactionary. Let's just say that there's not a lot of love for banks in the crypto community, the blockchain community, and I agree. I've said for years that it just boggles my mind that it's something like, last time I checked, 6 or 7 of the top 20 companies in the world are banks by market cap. They provide a needed and essential but very simple service, at the end of the day. And I just don't think it's worth the price right now that's basically charged for these services. One of the major use cases of the Worbli project is to drive down those costs. So it's not only access, but access is about cost too, right? Because if everybody can sign up for a bank account, but it costs $200 a month in fees, then it doesn't matter if it's available to you if you can't afford it, right? I mean, everybody technically has access to a Lamborghini. Technically. If you have a driver's license, right? Or let's say a lot of people do. But can you afford it, right? So access is a multi-pronged thing. It's more than just technology. It's more than just compliance. It is also cost. And in some cases, it's efficiency. It's about things like speed. If the business's needs is that they have to have settlement of payments within 24 hours, and your system can only do it in 72 hours, again, it's not very accessible to them, right? So I think it's great. It's just showing that for those of us who saw the promise of blockchain technology and have seen it for years, I mined my first Bitcoins in 2010. It's just validates what we already know.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's a win-win-win, to be honest with you. I want to switch gears a little bit, and I want to talk a little bit about, now, of course, one of the reasons why I love EOS. I know you were heavily involved in the EOS community before you started working with Worbli. So this isn't, what I'm about to do here isn't like a slag fest, because, of course, I'm still heavily invested in EOS. I know that you are too, and inside of the community. And I'm a big fan of chains that aren't parasitic, in the sense that, Fuzzy always talks about Voltron with all these different arms, right? And Worbli becomes a moving arm for financial access. And that's one of the reasons why I particularly like it. I want to see the chains do really well that'll mix well with the ecosystem. That to me is like the biggest victory. Creating Voltron, as Fuzzy likes to say. But I do want to ask you this, and I just want to take a cold hard look. Of course, we both know I've been through a few things myself lately. I wanted to ask you, what are the main things? Why can't right now I go to McDonald's? Why can't I buy my Big Mac with Bitcoin? Why can't I do that right now? What are some of the barriers of adoption that are currently kind of holding us back from this mass adoption, and maybe particularly with EOS? What do you think?
Well, I think, to your example of purchasing something at McDonald's, one, it's still a very small amount of people who are even aware, right? Just general awareness. I mean, Bitcoin and blockchain are certainly far more, exposed or, talked about in media. They're better known. Blockchain is better known than it was, years ago, but still a small minority of people. And at best, they've heard of Bitcoin, and that's about as far as it's ever gone. They just know there's this kind of thing out there that some people have made a bunch of money on, and some people have lost their shirt on, kind of thing. So that it's just awareness, really marketing, PR, that sort of thing. I think the second factor is that the technology itself. It's still not easy to use, or say not easy to use safely. Yeah. If you really want to be 100% locked down, we're talking, hardware wallets, or maybe something on the line of a paper wallet. It's key management, and it's computer security procedures, right? Processes. What do you is your computer properly protected? Do you have a VPN maybe, or stuff like that? What kind of security protocols do you have for your devices? And then it's about government regulatory environment. I'd say for someone like McDonald's, I'm sure there are people in the organization who are aware of cryptocurrencies. I would find it amazing if they weren't. But at the same time, I'm sure that they're looking at facts and figures and probably better data than any of us even have. And they're saying, okay, we'll say 100,000 people who even own a Bitcoin, and there's, 400,000 people who have ever touched it. And they're largely concentrated in these sort of urban environments or whatever. And government doesn't have a clear mandate on what this stuff even is. So why does McDonald's want to jump into processing Bitcoin payments if, one, it's highly unlikely that the bulk of the people coming through our McDonald's in a given day will even have or know about Bitcoin? Two, everything that they'll need to do to change their payment systems, right? We don't have robust enterprise-grade merchant payment systems. So that's another portion that's there. We don't have the infrastructure yet. So I think there's 5 or 6 various moving parts that kind of have to come together before we see that. And then I'll end that with a final question I saw on Twitter yesterday or the day before, which is, why is everybody pushing for payments with Bitcoin? Do you really think if Bitcoin continues to be the sort of digital reserve currency of the cryptocurrency market that people are going to want to spend it every day? No, it's going to be a store of value. It's much more likely, in my opinion, to end up as digital gold than it is a digital currency that we use day in and day out for commerce. I don't think that's what's going to happen with Bitcoin. I think people are going to end up with that every nation in the world will create a sovereign digital money. There'll be digital dollars and digital euros, and that cryptocurrencies are unlikely to end up, any of them, becoming the sort of global reserve currency. I imagine it's possible, but I'd say it's highly unlikely. So we're still several steps away. I think people want to believe that mass adoption is coming imminently, and I'd say it's still 2 to 3 years out. In the case of EOS, though, I'd say the biggest strides have been made in the industry. That the EOS community so far, with things like Scatter and the Meet.one wallet, right? We've got how many people now, playing games on, EOS-based games and, getting their airdrops and learning about cryptocurrencies, and they have a pretty, decent to use interface. It's still not simple. I mean, I couldn't turn, we've said before, we should have a meme that says, when Nana buying shit coins, right? That's that's been our joke between us, but Nana's not using Scatter, not yet. And I know that Ennis James and those guys are very focused on that, but that's what we need, right? We need talented devs, talented UX designers to continue to work with it, talented developers to figure out things like key management that's still safe. But above and beyond, we need networks that can protect users. And that's a big value prop for us, is Worbli users, are not going to be shit out of luck if their account gets hacked and someone gets into their funds. There's going to be ways in which we can recover those funds, or at least provide insurance for those funds if they're unrecoverable. That's the end game that we're pushing towards for the consumer level.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I love about Worbli, and I'm the same way. Like, I love EOS. It's a double-edged sword, because we can sit here and say grandma isn't using Scatter, and I say that all the time too. But when I look at how far that like Scatter and some of these applications have come like so quickly, we're so impatient. But at the same time, like,
they're on their way. I mean, might not be there today, but they're on their way. And I think to the point of multiple chains. I'm sorry, I didn't really answer that, but yeah, it's going to be a galaxy. I said that from the beginning. It's like it's EOS universe. It's EOS galaxy. Right? We'll have mainnet, and then we'll have Worbli, and there'll be Telos, and there'll be Costa Crypto Chain, and Fuzzy Chain, right? There's BIOS, there's, we've got IBC working on our chain already through the Transledger guys, and that'll only grow and get more robust. So then it'll be, interactivity between Ethereum, Litecoin, Bitcoin. There'll be value. There's already value transfer. That's coming to Worbli, ability to move a Bitcoin into your Worbli account, spend Bitcoin on the chain, and then exit back to Bitcoin. So it's coming, but in the EOS ecosystem is driving that sort of 3D blockchain concept that is absolutely the future, and was always the vision of EOS. It's what attracted us to do it. And why we did a sister chain, because we thought we were really contributing to that vision. Yeah,
that's one thing that I think certain kind of like mainnet maximalists are missing. That's why this thing was created. This is how it was created to work. It's not created to be like this like broomstick, broom, what are those things that scare crows or whatever in the fields? Like, it's not created to just sit there plunk. It's created to be like just a millipede with all these reciprocating arms and things that interact and provide value. And I think that
it's sister chains, it's side chains, it's it's really chains upon chains upon chains. And it allows for just a variety of different use cases. There'll be private chains that are interacting with the public chains. There'll be semi-private chains. I mean, there'll be every flavor imaginable, and EOS was built to accommodate that, which is its greatest strength, is its adaptability at this stage comparatively to other blockchains, right? I can't go start a new Ethereum fork. It's going to be really hard. I mean, I can do it code wise, and I can run my little singular miner on it or whatever, but no one's likely to mine my fork and start supporting it, right? But you can start up a chain. You can get block producers to support it, and you can go from there.
Yeah, I'm excited, and I think a few people might be missing that. That's what it was created to do. It's created to be Voltron, many reciprocating different arms, feeding information, doing various experiments on different nets, learning from each other. Like, this is just constantly evolving machine. I'm gonna move back here. I'm gonna talk to you just on a personal level, Dominic, because I know you pretty well. Like, I mean, we talk quite a bit. How's this last year been for you? Like, last year, 2 years? Like, I know it's been good. I know it's rewarding. I know things are finally like moving along. But have you ever just wanted to come home and throw up? Like, I know how stressful is getting one of these startups going? Like, how much pressure is it? How much are you working? How does that tie in with the rest of your life? Like, what is it like to be sitting in Dominic's chair right now, not as like the prolific Domenic CEO of Worbli, but as like Domenic Thomas?
Well, I mean, I think that this past year was particularly challenging for anybody who was just getting off the ground in crypto. I mean, I think it was even challenging for the folks who were able to we'll say, cash in on the ICO craze of 2017, right? Because they ran into issues of treasury management and, some of them being stuck with, tons of funds, but thinking that in maybe budgeting and planning around having $30 million, only to see that in 3 months you've actually got 15. That's as hard of a problem to deal with as, oh shit, where am I going to get the next 100K I need, right? So I think it's been just a particularly difficult environment for anybody to operate in. We're funded by cryptocurrencies, right? And I think that's great. That we've all, for the most part, most of the startups in the space are kind of staying true to what we are, which is that, we're gonna accept cryptocurrency funds and we're gonna start our businesses with them. Sure, we're gonna convert them to fiat to pay the people that require that, or to pay for this. Amazon Cloud, right, is not accepting EOS as I last checked, where we're running some of our servers for our website or whatever. But at the end of the day, we are all doing that. We're eating our own dog food, as they say. But it's been very difficult. The most challenging part is that that early stage funding still. You and I have talked about this a lot. The fundraising is just brutal. It's just brutal. You're going out there, and in the meantime, you are trying to continue to build, right? You're trying to build and grow, and I think most blockchain startups or tech startups start the same way, which is that you find a few technical people that can kind of start the coding and the technical development, and you have a few business people who can do the business side, and then you might have some folks who have like kind of marketing and PR backgrounds or financial backgrounds, right? So you have kind of those first 3 or 4 core pieces, and you kind of come together and say, all right, we're all going to put in our time and energy and not get paid anything, and get going. And you start building, and you start working on things, and you start developing some relationships, and you try to raise some funds. But as we kind of said earlier, unless you're in the crowd with the well-to-do, or the family and friends that have some spare cash to drop on you, those are your only funding resources, or your own funds, And so you kind of start there, and you get what you can, and you start moving and creating a little bit of momentum. And it becomes a relentless pursuit of money, though, pretty much. Like most of the energy that I really had to put in the last year was around fundraising, and that just, I don't know. I imagine there's some people who love it, see it as some kind of hunting challenge, going out there and pitching different people and trying to get them to support your project. But it's really brutal. And then the other side is, it's the blessing and the curse of remote teams. We have all the tools to do this now, Zoom and obviously all of the infrastructure of the internet, or email, and websites, and project management tools and things like that are reasonably affordable, like Asana. But it's hard. It's hard when you're not in person with everyone, able to just work every day and easily communicate around things. And it's hard that particularly the blockchain and cryptocurrency community expects constant and total access. I think transparency is great. It's one of the things that attracts me to the space, and we want to provide as much information as we can. But at the same time, there are laws, there are rules around what we can and can't do. And there's just a matter of how much energy do you want me to spend all day making sure that everybody's up to date with the latest and greatest of the project? Or I could do that, or I could be out attracting businesses to Worbli and doing business development and creating strategic partnerships and continuing to develop those partnerships and work with those partnerships so that they're turning into value for the project. There's lots of, again, compliance for us that I need to spend my time doing. That's an asset. There's a very large hidden asset in Worbli, which is the thousands of hours that have been spent on compliance to this point and will be spent. Good luck. If you want to clone Worbli, go ahead. But, you definitely have a long road to get to where we are at the compliance level, because it's a lot of groundwork and infrastructure internally that's in place, and in the way in which we've engaged all parts of the journey, from how we took in funds and from whom and how that's recorded. And, so it's just, it's a ton. It's the best job I've ever had. And I've always been an entrepreneur my entire life. I've only worked for people for like high school jobs and 1 year out of college. I'm not a good employee. Just too excited, and I just like building things, and I don't like the restraints of that type of position. So, but yeah, it's long, and it's stressful, and it takes a lot out of you.
It does, man.
And it's hard because you also, again, with such a public appearance so early in a project, right? Like, tech startups are not this public at like where Worbli is right now. They're not this public. You don't know who the CEO, like the only people who know who anybody is are the maybe Series A VC who's backing you, and the few people in your sort of social network on LinkedIn, but nobody really knows who you are. No, the CEO is not engaging people in social media or video conferencing like we did on Monday, not at this stage.
Yeah.
But it starts here from the beginning, because the only people, for the most part, who are going to be interested in funding are people who are already, blockchain users, because they're the only ones that are going to probably understand your process and how to get that Bitcoin into your, company's Bitcoin wallet. So, yeah, it's
come a long way. Tired. I know you're tired. The good thing is that you are funded, you are up, you are rolling. And as we've spoken about, of course, we're going to have an opportunity to take some of the lessons that you've learned, creating the funding for Worbli, and some of the things, of course, Trybe has learned, and we're maybe going to put together a tool that might help relieve some people's strife when they kind of come up against a lot of the same battles that we both have.
Yeah, I'm really excited about tackling this and making it easier for people that sort of come behind me on this journey. We need better solutions to early stage fundraising, no doubt.
Yeah,
no doubt, because it's limiting innovation. I'm not saying every idea is a good idea. There's a lot of terrible ideas out there, but even if those people could get 5 or 10 grand to try it out, you do learn from failing. We actually learn more from failing than we do, succeeding, for the most part. And I don't think there would be anything wrong with that. If we can do it in a way where we can reduce the risk and spread the risk for startup capital fundraising, I think that would be pretty revolutionary and pretty awesome. So I know that you and I and some other folks are going to be pursuing this for Worbli, and I'm excited to work on that project personally, for sure.
Me too, man. I'll tell you what, I'm not going to keep you for too much longer. I think I've stolen you for about an hour and a half already, but I want to ask like one last parting thing, and this one's a little bit of a deep one. Well, it's kind of like, if there was like one monumental moment, and maybe it's in the last like couple of years since you started Worbli, or maybe it was a conversation, maybe it was somebody who said something to you that inspired you. If you could kind of take one of those conversations and like the pinnacle moment where something just clicked, or you realized that you're doing something properly, or you realized that you had to change, what is kind of like one life anecdote, moment, conversation, whatever it might be, that you would share with anybody who's listening that might potentially affect their life?
Oh, like something that was like particularly inspiring, or
it could be inspiring, it could be horrifying. It just had to come with some sort of realization.
I think that the big thing for me in the last year has been, it wasn't it wasn't really anything specific, but there was sort of a moment about a month or so ago where one of the things that you hear from, anybody in a kind of a leadership position, like a CEO position, or let's say an executive position or founder type position, is that you get to this point between the hours that you're putting in at work and all of the different people you're dealing with, that like you're letting everyone down a little bit, right? Like invariably it ends up with like no one's happy, like you're not spending as much time with your family, right? So they're kind of upset. You've got maybe partners in the business that all have different ideas. You've got people working for you that have needs and want, your support and time and energy. You have investors and supporters who want your time and energy. You've got business, right? There's so many relationships that I'm a part of right now. It's hundreds, right? And then if you talk about all the individual people that are involved in the project in some way, it's thousands, right? And to some degree, every single one of those people, plus my personal life, want some of my time, which is great, right? It's a sort of, so to speak, a good problem to have. It would be much worse if no one wanted to talk to me at all, or be involved in my life at all. That would be obviously quite a lonely existence. But it just came to this realization that I needed to really accept that and make peace with the fact that pretty good is success. That if people feel pretty good overall across the board with what I'm able to give them, that I'm probably doing really, really well. That you're not going to make everyone happy. No way. It's too diverse of a ecosystem that we're in particularly, but that being in a leadership position is about compromise constantly. Yeah. Constant, relentless compromise. Okay, this person wants this, and this person wants that, and this is what's available. All right, you're going to get a B, and you're going to get a B. Because if I give you an A, they get a D. And if I give you a B plus, then they get a B minus, and they get a C minus. Like, shit. I don't have 100 A's to give out. It's just not going to happen. Or occasionally, something is so critical that you've got to kind of fail a few people to give an A, because this thing, if it doesn't get done and it doesn't get done extremely well, everybody gets let down. So how do you figure out what those things are? So like a critical process, they'd call it in project management. What's the critical process? Let me make sure that I never take my eye off that, because we're all screwed if I miss that one. Even though these 500 people over here are screaming for my attention, telling me that, I don't give a shit, I don't care, and I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm a moron, I know that this process right here has to get done, and that they're unaware of it, but that's fine. It's that sort of thing,
You're not going to make everybody happy all the time. Can't please all.
You're not going to make everybody happy ever. No, you're not. You have to accept that. You have to accept that state of constant compromise. How do you make people as happy as possible? Right? That's the difference. Not, oh my God, Matt needs me. All right, let me go over there. Matt, are you okay? You okay? Yeah, I'm good, Dom. Great. You're amazing. Cool. Oh, this person over here. How are you doing? Oh, this project, no. It's just understand that and give yourself a break and just literally do the best you can.
I think that's a great place to end off on. Domenic, I know you're a good human, man.
Thanks.
I do. Sincerely. I'm not blowing smoke up your ass. You're a good human. I appreciate everything you do. And I'm honored to have the opportunity to work with you on a lot of these things in Worbli. So thanks for just sitting down and taking a few minutes just to talk and kind of shoot the shit. I appreciate it. And I hope we can do it again sometime soon.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. It's always great talking to you, man.
You too, buddy. I'll see you soon.